We always start off our week with DT and Murphy. Brendan Murphy and myself, Dan Tortora, here with you. We joined forces for the first time ever on MU Courtside, a show that I had built and created while I was at Marywood University from 2003 to 2007. And then Murph took over down the road after Brian Johnson did an amazing job and Joe Forgione and company. And then Brendan Murphy put his flavor on it, his spin on it. We met each other through Enrico Mastriani and Gabby Holko at the time, and had the opportunity to go on the show, and I had the opportunity to return to MU Courtside and have some fun. And we did a couple shows together, did the playoffs, and after that, I mean, really just created a friendship pretty quickly off the phone initially, and that turned into Brendan being on the show. That turned into Brendan signing a contract with Dan Tortora Broadcast Media, and has turned into what DT and Murphy is today. So I feel very honored and very privileged that my first show all the way down the road paid off dividends into, my current show, and how the world works so beautifully in that way, where you get to connect back to what you did that you never thought you'd be able to connect back to again. And I have to thank Brendan for that, because he's the one that opened the door. So with him opening the door and giving me an opportunity, a friendship was built. And now I start off the week with Murph every single week because I love it. It's fun. And I told him when we started working together I wanted to keep doing it, and I'm a man of my word. So with that being said, inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', DT and Murphy coming to you to start off all of your weeks on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora around 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We appreciate your patience this morning. Murph and I will be talking about the College World Series between LSU and Florida, aka more SEC Takeover. We'll discuss the SEC Takeover because, at this point, pickleball and cricket better watch out because the SEC's taking it all. We'll get into Major League Baseball, the NFL, Aaron Rodgers wanting to legalize psychedelic drugs because why not in 2023? Everything else that makes no sense is here, and college football. So we're having some fun and having a good time, and we'll start off with the college baseball. We'll end with college football, and the irony of both is that the SEC runs them. So with that being said, I am more than happy to bring Murph in picture to have some fun here, as always, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Murph, how you doing?
Doing a lot better considering the Gators forced a game 3 last night. A lot better.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I was getting some messages. I know Greg was I think cheering for LSU, but the thing that I wanted to say that I told Brendan I'm not going to say until we get on the line together was the fact of this College World Series. Now the series is tied 2-2. But you look at this, now there's a winner-take-all Game 3 coming up, and I looked at the score and I said, they are scoring more points on the baseball field than the football team has scored recently.
PNC Bank is committed to providing convenience.
24 runs scored by the Florida Gators to force a Game 3. What was the score, 24-4?
24-4.
And you're looking.
I didn't know Florida football started this early.
Well, my question was, what is it that somebody said something to me yesterday? They said, isn't there a mercy rule? And
in the regular season, there is, not in the playoffs.
And I was like, there's definitely not a mercy rule because the mercy rule would have been way before 24. But 24 runs scored by one team, the Florida Gators. In a close game of Game 1, Game 2 just blew the heck right up, and now we have a forced Game 3 winner-take-all College World Series. Murph, you're gatored out today on purpose. What are your thoughts?
Well, honestly, I'd want to probably start with Game 1 first because you don't want to forget about that one, which was a phenomenal game, by the way. This College World Series has had some unbelievable baseball. To be honest with you, I don't say this lightly. There has been better baseball in college baseball this year during the playoffs than Major League Baseball. And I don't say that lightly because I love Major League Baseball. I will watch Major League Baseball every single day.
Yeah.
But granted, the Mets have not been good this year. So for me, I've had a harder time watching their games all the time like I did last year. But, I still do. But the Florida games, Wake Forest, who deserved to be in this series, but got beaten by LSU 2 out of 3 games in Omaha. But it was just unbelievable baseball. Lots of 1-run games, lots of pitchers duels, slugfests. Teams doing their best impression of major leaguers to go out there and win baseball games. But game 1 was dominated by pitching, and no one did it better in that game than Ty Floyd from LSU. Through 8 innings, over 120 pitches, 17 strikeouts, which is absurd. And he looked great doing it. So 8 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 17 strikeouts. His fastball had life up in the zone that guys could not touch. Baseball players talk a lot about like a fastball that rises.
Yeah.
I know physically it's not possible, but when a pitch doesn't drop, it feels like it rises. So that's your riser, essentially, what it would be called. His fastball had that late life up in the zone, and it's not like he was throwing 98 to 100. He was only throwing 95, 96. But that late life up in the zone is what was getting these guys up, keeping these guys off balance. They couldn't touch it. And even later in the game, I'm watching it at bat with Wyatt Langford, and he looked silly swinging at the first pitch because it was by him before he was swung at it.
Yeah.
And Wyatt Langford's the best hitter on the Florida team. So that's a real crazy thing to think about. But as we go, they had, they couldn't touch him. And they had 3 runs off of him somehow. I don't know. But once Riley Cooper came out of the bullpen in game 1, it was pretty much over. Because Riley Cooper's been great for them in the entire postseason, and he went 3 innings to save the game into the 11th inning, and basically prevented Florida from doing anything. And it's not like the guys that came in for Florida did poorly. Like Brandon Sproat did okay to start the game, only went 4 innings, but gave up 2 runs, struck out 7. He did walk 5 guys, which wasn't ideal, so his control wasn't quite there. Cade Fisher threw well in 3 1/3, but gave up 1 run, which was costly. And Brandon Neely gave up the big home run to give LSU the lead for good. It was I believe it was Cade Beloso that hit it in the top of the 11th inning, the home run. But it was Cade Beloso. And it was kind of a bomb. It was a slider that Neely left over the plate. And that was pretty much the game because they weren't touching Riley Cooper in the bottom half of that inning. But it was a fun game 1 for sure. But then you get on to game 2, which is where it really got fun for me. Now, it was not. Florida was down 3-1 in the top of the 3rd.
Yeah.
This was a game that you thought, okay, they might get swept here. I kid you not, I was on my way home from Allentown yesterday, and I checked the score because I wasn't home yet. Because it was later, I stayed out later than I was expecting to. And I see top of the 3rd inning, it's 3-1. Florida had runs on first and second. I'm like, uh-oh. Like, this isn't good. Next thing I know, they erupt for 6 runs in the top of the 3rd, capped off by a Ty Evans grand slam. I believe they said it was the first one in College World Series history, which I find hard to believe.
Yeah.
I really do. But they scored 6 in the 3rd, 1 in the 4th. They put up a 0 in the 5th. 5 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th, 4 in the 8th, and 5 in the 9th. For a grand total of 24 runs on 23 hits.
Yeah.
And Hurston Waldrop did not have his best stuff in this game. And that's saying something because they were still able to win a game without their ace's best stuff. And it was awfully impressive that they were able to go out there and just put up zeros. Blake Purnell ended up getting the win. Pitched an inning and 2/3. Nick Ficarata ended up coming in and throwing 5 innings, a 1-run ball in relief. Saved the bullpen. So basically, you're ready to go for tonight. Lots of hits in this game. Wyatt Langford was 5 for 5, 6 RBIs. Jack Caglione was 3 for 6, 5 RBI. BT Riopel, what a stud, by the way. If anybody doesn't know BT Riopel's backstory, BT Riopel is going to be starting a career in finance on July 31st. He is not pursuing professional baseball.
Yeah.
And I do think there's going to be teams that try and talk him out of it. Like, I could see him actually getting drafted maybe in the later rounds, and some team says, hey, we'll offer you X amount of money to come play for us, play in the minor leagues. I could see him turning it down. But I would imagine that everybody in the company he's going to be working for has been watching, knowing that this guy's going to be working for them, and some of his first clients are probably going to be his teammates, which would be an interesting story. But BT Riopel has been unbelievable in the postseason. He's hitting home run after home run in the postseason and doing everything he can to make sure that he goes out a winner. And it's fun to watch. It really is. But this Florida team has looked really good.
Yeah.
They didn't look great on Saturday against LSU, obviously, because that was game one. Ty Floyd absolutely dominated. And, they got shut down by 2 outstanding pitchers from LSU. Now, the thing is, they didn't need to see oh, God, why am I losing my train of thought right now? I am losing my train of thought.
No worries. Riley
Cooper. They did not have to see Riley Cooper in game 2, and it's possible they don't have to see him in game 3 either. But now game 3 coming in, there's the threat of Paul Skeens coming back on short rest. He probably wouldn't pitch the whole game, but if he starts, they're probably going to get at least 3 or 4 innings out of him, and that's the best pitcher in the country we're talking about here. Possible number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, and we look at how we got here, and Greg shot a message over. LSU over Wake Forest in 11 innings for LSU to advance, and got those 2 runs there in the 11th inning in order to get this separation in, a good pitching game. Not a lot of hits by these 2 teams, and, we had overall 8 hits total in that game, and the matchup just between the two powerhouse teams this year on that part of the bracket, LSU and Wake Forest. And great to see Wake Forest because people, a lot of people don't know kind of what Wake Forest is. It's a small school, good education from what you gather, and but a small school, a school in the ACC that doesn't get a lot of respect, despite the fact that I've been defending Dave Clawson in college football for more years than I can remember at this point. But when we look at, like you said, you talk about pitching and all this, on one side of it for LSU, you got, Skeens and Hurd, and you have 8 innings pitched for Skeens, 2 hits, and no errors, 1 walk, 9 Ks, and then Hurd comes in to finish things up in 3 innings, 1 hit off of him, 1 walk, and 1 K on the side of LSU. On the side of Wake Forest, Lauder pitched 7 innings in that loss, in that close game, to 11 innings overall for that game. Lauder had 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 walks, 6 Ks, and we saw 4 different pitchers for Wake Forest try to get this thing done, but LSU just did the work that they had to do and was able to take care of business, and their bats were able to wake up enough in that 11th inning, in that extra time, to get them to where they are today in this College World Series, which led us to the 2 games that Brendan has spoken on in the matchup between LSU and Florida as we see the SEC take something else and have this. So I mean, to see Florida and LSU here in the College World Series, we're going to continue that conversation in a second here on what the SEC kind of is doing, their storyline overall. But then to see LSU and Florida in that first game, like you said, that matchup 4-3, so tight, so close. LSU had 11 hits in that game and eventually were able to get that one extra run that they needed. And then yesterday, to see these games be so close and defensive and pitching between LSU and Wake Forest, and that first game between LSU and Florida, and then to come into this game and see Florida just wake up 23 hits, 24 runs, like you said, to win 24-4, which is essentially a football game, which has led us to where we are today, which is nuts. Where and I think some of these Florida Gator baseball players are going to be asked by Billy Napier to join the football team. And then LSU and Florida will face off tonight in a winner-take-all, Monday, June 26th, College World Series Game 3. And that game is going to happen at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. And
I'll be watching.
And I will be sitting here, too, watching. So I'm going to be recording some stuff and doing some work in the studio, but gives me an excuse to watch it as well. Greg said amazing play by the LSU first baseman, play of the tournament. So
I was about to talk about that.
Yeah, so go ahead with that, because then I got to talk about the SEC.
So that play on the bunt coverage by Trey Morgan at first base for LSU in the Wake Forest, in the second Wake Forest game, so the game on Thursday, that was a perfectly executed play all the way around. It was a safety squeeze that Wake Forest had on. So the bunt placement was perfect. But the bunt coverage by Trey Morgan was phenomenal. He shovels it to the catcher, and they make the play. That saved the game. That saved the Tigers. Got him to the 11th inning, because it was still a scoreless game.
Yeah,
that game was 0-0 in the 11th inning when Tommy Tanks came up and hit that 2-run home run to send him to the final. That was pretty darn impressive. That was one of the best plays that I've seen by a first baseman in coverage.
And so we look at the overall picture of the SEC and say to ourselves this morning that the SEC, Florida and LSU, are forcing us into a Game 3 winner-take-all World Series for college baseball. We have seen success by the SEC in other worlds of softball and basketball, and they own the college football playoff for the most part, and definitely in recent history. And the two teams,
yeah, I think that's an understatement.
Well, because I'm including a couple Clemsons, and
fair,
but not recently, and not only owning that, but putting themselves in a position now where Florida and LSU, ironically, are two schools that could have made the college football playoff if not for a couple trip-ups. We could have seen Florida a couple seasons ago make it in, potentially as a two-loss team.
Don't remind me
because of what they did. Because I defended them, but I couldn't defend two losses.
No, because of what that idiot Marco Wilson did with the stupid shoe.
I know.
That against LSU is the reason they did not go to the playoffs.
So think about this.
Because that play that he threw the shoe would have ended the game. That was a fourth down play that he got an unsportsmanlike and gave LSU a first down. That play ends the game.
Next to a holding penalty. And I say this because Syracuse football has been notorious for them in recent history. So next to a holding penalty, which can drive you nuts because Syracuse has gotten 2 in a row, I believe 3 in a row, or 3 on the same drive. So dealing with holding penalties, I would say, in football, is the worst punch in the face that you can give yourself. But I would say very close to it is an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, as you mentioned, because of what that does to your team, and it's completely unnecessary, and you don't need to do it. And so I guess tonight I'm hoping that none of the Gators players decide to throw their cleats at LSU.
Oh my God! Please don't.
And but to look at this LSU Florida matchup for a title, if you link it to football, you say to yourself, LSU and Florida genuinely recently could have been in the college football playoff. LSU could have been back. Florida could have gotten there for the first time. And so, to see this and to see the SEC takeover and then to see the football score yesterday of 24-4, it's painting this picture to me of like the SEC is really taking over everything. And there's also irony in Wake Forest, because Wake Forest, when Clemson was down a couple of years ago, Wake Forest was in a place where they could have made the college football playoff. And I was like, there's no way they're going to put Wake Forest in the college football playoff. Even if they win all their games, they're not going to put them in. Now, they gave the committee a reason because they lost a couple games down the stretch. But if they had been undefeated, then Wake Forest would have deserved it. But I don't think the committee would have let them in, because I think this is how the committee works with the 4 teams. Alabama is getting in. Even if they have 2 losses, they're going to have an argument. And because they're Alabama. And they have. So they've gotten in with no losses. They've gotten in with 1. And there's still the conversation when they have 2. So Alabama has a spot that they've worked toward. But they have a spot. If they win every time. This is how the season starts for the college football playoff. The 4 spots are already taken. Alabama has their spot unless they lose 2. And you can... And if they lose 2, then we'll see how everybody else does. But you could still argue them in. Clemson has their spot if they go undefeated. The Big Ten has a spot for no good reason. And then the SEC has another spot. That's how it works. And that's how it has worked. So Wake Forest was never going to get in. And then we look at Wake Forest here with baseball. They almost got in with football. Now they almost got in with baseball. So there's just these storylines that I'm seeing of the ACC, of Wake, of Florida. Could have gotten into the college football playoff. Now they're in the College World Series. They're playing up against LSU. LSU would have been a really hot team to get into the college football playoff here recently. Now they're in the World Series final game. So it's cool how baseball and football, 2 different fields, but in some ways, the storyline is still poetically paralleling each other.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you see me looking at the window. We got a nasty thunderstorm happening right now. So I don't know if you can hear it, but there's been some decent claps of thunder in the last few minutes here. So I just checked the radar, and it's not pretty.
Yeah.
But it's not going to last all that long. It should be done by like 10:30.
Yeah.
But I was watching the weather last night, and they're saying it's going to be nasty down here today. So there will not be any golf for me today, unfortunately.
It's going to be hot here.
Yeah.
It's going to be hot.
Yeah, and I think you guys are supposed to get all this because it's going north.
Yeah.
I think you guys are supposed to get all this in the next couple days.
Yeah, we have a threat the next 3 days. Did you know that Wake Up Call now does weather forecasting? but and you know what? That's one place where you can be wrong 99% of the time and never lose
and
your
still
job.
Have a job.
Yeah. You can be like, hey, I think that based on what I see on this map and what I'm gathering here from all these graphics, there's going to be snow. And there's a good chance we're going to get 2 feet of snow, and you wake up in the morning and it's 70 degrees and it's sunny. And I got to a point in high school where I was so mad at our meteorologists, bless their hearts, because they're not bad people, I'm sure they're great. But I was so mad because my last couple years of school, they were wrong about it, and I wanted a snow day. And now when I'm an adult, there is no snow day, because when there's snow or there's not snow, and you own your own business, you don't have the Dan Tortora Broadcast Media is on a 2-hour delay. I don't have that. So you get, which I like. I don't want to have a delay. So I enjoy the snow. I enjoyed them back in the day. But I will say this about Marywood. Marywood, 2 hours south, almost a direct straight, like a diagonal line from Syracuse. 2 hours on the nose from Syracuse. And I don't know what people... I want to say 2 things. Number one, in the dating world, you all know how crazy it is for me because I said I'm like Blade. I think my friend called me Blade. I think Isaac called me Blade. He goes, "You're like the vampire hunter, and you're like finding them all and putting garlic necklaces over them to protect the world." So that's how it feels in my dating. I found a lot of vampires. A lot of them are out during the day, like they're day walkers. It's scary. But so as Blade, so I'm in the dating world, and these girls are like, Syracuse to Scranton's 3 hours. Isn't it like 3 or 4 hours? And I was like, it's 2. They're like, I don't think so. I'm like, well, I know so. And they're like, there's no way it's 2. I'm like, it's 2. Well, how do you know? I've made the drive like 300 times. It's 2. It's either a minute. It's either an hour 57, an hour 58, 2:01, or 2. It's right in 2. And knowing how nitpicking some people are, they'd be like, Dan, it's not 2 hours, it's 2 hours and 1 minute. And I'm like, just get out of my house, just walk away. But people think it's so much farther than Syracuse, and it's not. It's 2 hours on the nose. And my whole story to this is Syracuse gets 2 feet of snow and it's 12 degrees outside and we had to go to school. Marywood gets 2 inches of snow, but the wind chill would be so cold that Marywood would close. And I'll never forget the day that I walked out of the liberal arts building. Because I walk out of liberal arts where the rotunda is. I walked to the middle where the Commons used to be before they built the new media communications building. So I walk across the street, and in the like 20 seconds I was outside, I felt my nose hairs inside of my nose freeze together. And I was like, I got to get inside. And so Marywood, I want to credit them for giving me snow days when it was cold, because Syracuse was like, oh, it's cold? Put a jacket on. And they're like,
that is the difference between upstate New York and northeastern Pennsylvania.
And I just want to let people know that thank you, Marywood, for the extra snow days. But, out here in Syracuse, they're like, the nation is like, the wind chill is so cold that it's not safe to be outside. And we're standing outside on the bus stop, 6 years old, being like, when the bus coming? Yeah. And obviously the North, very different than the SEC of the South. But before we go to our first step aside here, Brendan, what is it saying about the SEC that they're now front and center in baseball? We're seeing them at the heart of the college baseball season, taking it all the way into the end of June, and we expect and anticipate them to take us to the middle of January coming up here in football.
Yeah, the thing with the SEC in baseball is the SEC's always dominated baseball. Between LSU, between Vanderbilt, Florida.
Wait, Vanderbilt? They're still in the SEC?
Vanderbilt. Oh, yeah.
Just kidding.
Everybody forgets about Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt's baseball team has been really good for a long time.
They're not a bad school. It's just the football team. But that's what they say.
They're a baseball school. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's the issue, is because people say football-wise that the SEC should drop Vanderbilt because they bring nothing to the table, but you have to look at the entire portfolio. They used to be good in basketball at times, and, if they have what they have in baseball, they're like, oh, they're a bad football team, so get rid of them. It's not just football that they offer.
They dominate baseball. They've only won a handful of national championships, but Vanderbilt baseball has been the cream of the crop for a long time.
Yeah.
They've developed lots of big leaguers. Lots of them. The one that comes to mind right away is Dansby Swanson. Dansby Swanson was the number 1 overall pick back in 2015. Obviously, he got traded for Shelby Miller, and Diamondbacks made one of the dumbest trades in franchise history to get Shelby Miller, but he ends up in Atlanta. They win a World Series.
Yeah.
He just signed a big contract with the Cubs. So he's there. Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker were 2 unbelievable pitchers coming out of Vanderbilt. Now, Kumar Rocker had Tommy John surgery, and Jack Leiter hasn't been great in the minor leagues so far. So we're waiting to really see what happens with those guys. But the more you think about it, like, Vandy's great at baseball. The SEC in general is great at baseball. Just about every team in the SEC is pretty darn good at baseball. The problem is, you look at other Power 5 schools in baseball, the only other ones that are competing are the Pac-12 and the ACC. You don't see a whole lot from the Big 12. I mean, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas Tech, those schools are pretty good, but I mean, look at the Big 10 in baseball is like it's as if they're facing a mid-major. Penn State baseball is not very good. Ohio State's not very good. Michigan's not very good. But keep in mind, this baseball season starts in February.
Yeah.
So when you're up north, you're battling snow. It's cold.
Yeah.
I mean, from when I played college baseball, I remember there was one game we played at the University of Scranton. First of all, I did not play in the game, and it felt like the longest game I've ever been a part of, and it actually was. The game took almost 5 hours, for the record. It was only a 9-inning game.
Yeah.
We won 20-19, I believe. How many home runs did Jake hit? I think Jake hit 2 home runs in that game. Clear over their new wall in center field. And it was 35 degrees. We played the longest game in 35-degree weather, and it snowed. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting on the bench with my beanie, with my sweatshirt, with my 3 layers on. Like, I am freezing. But I was actually dressed warmer than almost everybody else that was sitting on the bench. There were guys that just had, like, their pullovers and, like, damn, I'm cold. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not cold. Like, I got a beanie on. I got pullover on. I got a hoodie on. I'm all toasty and warm. Because the thing is, I'm a skier. So, I understand what it's like to be outside in the cold. So that's what I took advantage of. There was my background in skiing. But the ACC too, I mean, you got to give them some credit too. I mean, Wake Forest this year, baseball wise, was unbelievable. I mean, like you said, it's not a big school, but in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, it's a relatively small town.
Yeah.
And Wake Forest plays in a bandbox at home, so their lineup, guys got a lot of home runs, but keep in mind it's a small field. And when you look back at that Wake Forest LSU series, I think about it and go, there's really not anybody in that Wake Forest lineup that could change the game with one swing. LSU, there's at least 3 guys that can do that.
Yeah.
That was the difference. Because Tommy White literally ended the game with one swing and hit an absolute bomb to left field on the first pitch he saw and ended the game and sent him to the championship. So the thing is, you can't really take anything away from Wake Forest. They had an outstanding season.
Yeah.
But people forget, LSU was the number 1 team in the nation for a long time. They were the number 1 team in the nation for about 3/4 of the season. And then they lost a few games, and then Wake Forest leapfrogged Florida to become the number 1 team. Now, the number 1 team, the number 1 national seed, has not won a College World Series in quite some time. So, for the law of averages, it would have been cool to see a Wake Forest win. But at the same time, I'm probably a little happier that it's LSU because pitching isn't quite as good as Wake Forest is, because Wake Forest pitching up and down is unbelievable. So, I was kind of relieved to see LSU, but I also thought the series would be over in 2 games and that Florida would be the national champions by now. So it'll be fun to watch tonight. But as far as balance of power with the SEC and all the other conferences in every sport, the SEC just dominates sports.
Yeah.
That's what these schools do.
Yeah.
Baseball, football, basketball, lacrosse.
Basketball for sure.
Literally every sport, they just dominate. I mean, they don't dominate basketball like the way the ACC does, but at the same time, they're like Alabama basketball was a number 1 seed this past year. Alabama.
Yeah.
In basketball was a number 1 seed. That doesn't happen, ever.
No.
But it's been fun to watch because, obviously my team's out of the SEC. So I see these schools all the time. LSU, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama,
Yeah.
And people forget about Auburn. Auburn had a solid baseball team this year too. But, we're down to the two dogs in the SEC for baseball right now. And, Coach O'Sullivan and Coach Johnson have done phenomenal jobs with their teams going for thus far. And I'm really looking forward to Game 3 tonight. And let's hope that the Gators take Game 3.
We'll see. I know Papa Joe's saying go Gators. Before we get into our fast break here, I do want to let y'all know on DT and Murphy inside a wake-up call with Dan Tortora, speaking on the College World Series, Major League Baseball, the NFL, and college football coming up. I want to go back to something that Brendan had spoken about, which was the Major League Baseball draft. I'm going to read you off just in the 21st century. So we have, so far we have from 2000 to 2022. Here in the 21st century, here are your picks. Your number one overall picks for Major League Baseball, where they came from. Adrian Gonzalez to the Marlins, first baseman out of East Lake High School in California. It's in 2000. 2001, Joe Mauer of the Twins, center coming from Cretin High School in St. Paul, Minnesota. 2002, Brian Bullington, right-handed pitcher for the Pirates out of Ball State University, Ball State and MAC. 2003, Delman Young, outfielder for the Rays, coming from Adolfo Camarillo High School in California. In 2004, these are the number one overall picks of Major League Baseball, by the way, history, just in the 21st century. Matt Bush, shortstop, Padres, Mission Bay High School in San Diego, California. So a lot of these high schools in California having the number one picks. 2005, Justin Upton, a shortstop for the Diamondbacks, number one overall pick. Great Bridge High School, Chesapeake, Virginia, to my top team. And coming in 2006, we have Luke, I feel like I'm going to say his name wrong, Luke Hashavar. Did I say it wrong?
Probably for good reason. We have no idea who he is.
Right-handed pitcher, Royals, University of Tennessee.
SEC.
So that's
one.
the SEC. That's one. Back-to-back here. 2007, David Price, left-handed pitcher for the Rays out of Vanderbilt.
Yep, that's
in
two.
2008, Tim Beckham, shortstop for the Rays, who had the number one pick back-to-back years out of Griffin, Georgia High School. In 2009, we have Steven Strasburg, right-handed pitcher for the Nationals.
Arizona State.
We saw
that's not SEC.
San Diego State coming to us.
I'm sorry, San Diego State. Oh, my God.
San Diego State out of the Mountain West.
Trevor, if you're watching, please feel free to make fun of me for that.
That's all good.
Because we were literally just talking about Steven Strasburg the other day.
To those who know Luke, for saying his name wrong, come at me with that too. So the Rays had back-to-back number one overall picks.
Mm-hmm.
And so once again, the Rays had back-to-back in 2007-8. The Nationals had back-to-back in 2009-10.
Yep,
Both
Harper's
of them,
next.
Both of them came through Syracuse when they were the Chiefs. Bryce Harper for 2010, number one overall pick out of Southern Nevada College for the Nationals. 2011, we have Garrett Cole, right-handed pitcher for the Pirates at the time, out of UCLA for the Pac-12. 2012, Carlos Correa, shortstop, Astros, Puerto Rico Baseball Academy, so one outside of the country, but still a territory. 2013, Mark Appel. I was going to say Appel. Mark Appel, right-handed pitcher, Astros, Stanford University. 2014, Brady Aiken, left-handed pitcher for the Astros out of Cathedral Catholic High School in San Diego, another California high school.
Did not sign, by the way. That was an interesting first round number one overall pick.
Yeah, so he was 17 years old. Southpaw. Yep. 2015, Dansby Swanson, which you said shortstop.
That's three.
Diamondbacks for Vanderbilt, so that's three in the 21st century. 2016, Mickey Moniak out of for the Phillies, outfielder, La Costa Canyon High School, also California. So basically, if you go to school in California in high school, you could be the number one overall pick. I think they've
Angels now.
They've all
by
been
the way
from California except for Puerto Rico. 2017. What'd you say about the Angels?
Well, Mickey Moniak's playing for the Angels now. Yeah. He's Phillies number one overall pick. But you had a couple, one for Virginia and then Joe Mauer's from Minnesota.
Yeah, so then,
those are the only, as far as I know, those are the only two that were not from California.
Oh yeah, it was St. Paul, Minnesota.
The high school kids.
Royce Lewis, shortstop, Twins.
He was high school, I believe.
California in San Juan, Capistrano. 2018, Casey Mize, right-handed pitcher for the Tigers out
Auburn.
of Auburn. That's 4. 2019, Adley
Rutschman.
Yeah, Adley Rutschman,
where he
catcher,
went to
Orioles,
school.
Oregon State. So that was the
That's AC. That's Pac-12.
2020, Spencer Torkelson, third baseman, Tigers, Arizona State. That's Pac-12.
Yep.
2021, Henry Davis, catcher, Pirates out of Louisville. And
ACC.
2022, Jackson Holliday, shortstop, Orioles, Stillwater High School in Oklahoma.
Yep.
So in the 21st century, we have 4 from the SEC, and then
It's gonna be 5 after this year because either Dylan Cruz or Paul Skeens is going number 1.
And then we have,
and they're both from LSU.
I want to check this here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. They could be, but it's not now. So San Diego State doesn't count for that now. So you got 4 from the Pac-12 and 4 from the SEC to lead.
I was going to say 2 or 3 from the ACC.
Yeah, so to lead the most in college baseball, from college baseball to number 1 overall pick in Major League Baseball in the 21st century from 2000 to 2022, the conferences that have the most number 1 overall picks in Major League Baseball are tied, Pac-12 with 4 and the SEC with 4.
Yep, that makes sense. I mean, the SEC is going to take the lead this year because they're going to have, like I said, there's 3 guys that could be the number 1 overall pick, all of which are playing in this series right now. Skeens, Dylan Cruz, and Wyatt Langford. Probably going to end up being Dylan Cruz, but it depends on what the Pirates want to do. Because if Paul Skeens falls in the Nationals' lap, that'd be pretty nice for them.
Yeah, I mean but we shall see. And looking at this too historically, with the Rays having back-to-back picks and the Nationals having back-to-back picks, and you look at the Nationals back-to-back picks, and you think, oh, this was going to make them great for a long time. But Bryce Harper's not there anymore, and Strasburg may never play again. So,
I mean, hey, they got a World Series out of it, so I don't think they're complaining.
No, they did. But when you look at those back-to-back picks, you would think, I mean, obviously hindsight's 20/20, but when they get drafted, there was hype between the two of them, Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper. But the thought process is, if you're looking at baseball hindsight and you're looking back at those picks, you would think to yourself, okay, you guys better have won a championship with these 2 picks, but it doesn't always happen. And know, and so I mean, you look at some of these guys that are as good as they are right now. I mean, the D-backs draft Justin Upton right back in 2005, and you see what he becomes after the fact. And then you look at in 2011, we're looking at 12 years ago. Garrett Cole was a pitcher for the Pirates, and now he's the ace for the Yankees. So. You never know what's going to happen. Yeah. You don't know where guys are going to end up. But it's always interesting to see where they start, and to give credit to your point that the SEC and with the SEC making mention of the ACC and the Pac-12, when we look back on over a decade of draft picks here, 2 decades plus of draft picks in the 21st century, number 1 overall, that the Pac-12 and the SEC are leading, and that Vanderbilt is in this world more than once. So,
yeah,
we have Tennessee in it, and you have Vanderbilt in it twice, and we'll see what can come of, Florida potentially having a number 1 pick, or, LSU or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from here. We're going to take a step aside for a fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We will be back with you after this to jump into Major League Baseball, a perfect segue, going from college and the World Series into the SEC, into Major League Baseball, number 1 overall pick draft history in the 21st century, to what's happening in Major League Baseball now. We're going to talk to Brendan Murphy about his Mets, just because I want to see his facial expressions. So we'll be back.
Here we go.
I'll be back after this fast break, where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Thanks for being with us.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily, and we bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand butter chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? This is a special message from Merritt Brady, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Watertown on 1290 Arsenal Street in Watertown, New York.
Chick-fil-A for me has always been about the people. I think it starts with the strength and leadership of the Cathy family. It's just amazing to see a family-run business reach the altitude that they have. Second mile service is something that we embodied at my previous business, and the ability to make people feel like they're the only person at your establishment, that you are there to serve them that day and looking for those extra ways to make them happy, to anticipate what they need next is what makes me tick. And I'm going to have so many opportunities at Chick-fil-A to do that. It's one of my favorite things to eat in the world. My favorite application question or interview question when I'm interviewing is when I get to, have you ever eaten at Chick-fil-A? And a smile hits both their ears. You know, they can't even answer the question for a second. And when I see that, it's like, man, that's going to be a great hire. They already get it. They already feel it. They already know that we're different. The Chick-fil-A experience, it's a real thing. And then, of course, just our generosity and community involvement and making a positive impact in the lives of our team members, our guests, and the community in general, I think is really the secret sauce.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and hope that you're having yourselves a terrific morning and start to your week. If you're not, we're going to make it better. If you are, we're going to keep it rolling. So with that being said and keeping it rolling, looking at Major League Baseball as we shift from the College World Series into Major League Baseball via talking about the number one picks of the last 20 plus years in the 21st century from college and high school to the pros. We now take a look at Major League Baseball. And Murph, your thoughts on where we're at in the majors right now? You know, we continue, and it's hard to believe. It's really hard to believe for me how quickly baseball moves, right? Because it never truly goes away. You know, it ends in November in the World Series. We start seeing them out there for spring training in February. There's really only 2 months of December and January. If they kind of squeak out a little bit farther, it's just going to be 12 months out of the year like it feels with the NHL. So Major League Baseball moves so fast, so rapidly that, you know, now instead of seeing our first games this week, we see them like now a week before and whatnot. So now you look at the record-wise, and we are right here at this midway point, right? We're going to be heading into the All-Star break. There's 162 games in the season. You look at the Tampa Bay Rays. The Tampa Bay Rays have played their 81. So they've officially played their first 81 with 81 left to go. And so, you know, we're at this midway point. The Tampa Bay Rays are the best team in baseball with 54 wins and 27 losses, a winning percentage of almost 67%. They lead the AL East. In the Central, the Twins lead and just got over 500 at 40-39 currently. In the West of the American League, the Texas Rangers, believe it or not, relevant for the first time since Alex Rodriguez was there, 47-30. And so they're leading their side of things in the AL West. In the National League, we have the Atlanta Braves at the top with a record of 50-27. This best record in the National League and second best record in baseball behind only the Rays, as they've shot up with the Mets struggling. And the Marlins have gotten better. The Phillies have gotten better. The Nationals still have a losing record. And the Mets now have a losing record after leading the division. In the Central, the Cincinnati Reds of the National League are 41-37 to lead there, with the Brewers half a game behind them. And still to this day, and hopefully we continue on, the Arizona Diamondbacks in first place of the NL West, 47-32, 15 games above 500. And they are not only in front of the Dodgers, but they're in front of the Giants, who have shot up to pass the Dodgers. The Giants are 2.5 games behind the Diamondbacks. The Dodgers are 3, then the Padres, and then the Colorado Rockies. So that is a look at the standings of Major League Baseball. To go a little bit deeper, Murph, where would you like to start?
You had to rub that in about the Mets, didn't you?
I'm telling a story.
I know you are. Really quick,
I want the Mets to
win.
I do. I want them to win. It's great for the state of New York when they do.
Yeah. Really quick though, before we get into that, there was one thing I didn't mention about the draft, and
Yeah.
the Major League Baseball draft compared to other sports is so volatile because in the NFL and in the NBA, these guys are hopping in and playing right away.
Yeah.
They're literally playing immediately.
Yeah.
Like Zion, like who the heck's the guy? The Wembenyama or whatever the heck the guy's name is, got drafted by the Spurs.
Yeah, well, they expect him to win a championship like tomorrow.
Yeah, like these guys are stepping right in.
Mm-hmm.
In baseball, they don't step right in.
No.
You read off that list of names. Let's be honest. There's about 5 or 6 names that nobody's ever heard of. Matt Bush never made the major leagues until he was a pitcher, and even then he wasn't very good. Mark Appel, I think, might have briefly gotten there, but he had one of the craziest career that anybody's ever had.
Yeah.
Was terrible in the minor leagues, retired, came back. It was terrible. Ended up with the Phillies minor league system, by the way. Played for the Iron Pigs briefly. Brady Aiken never played in the major leagues. There was a couple in the early 2000s that I'd never heard of that I don't believe have ever played in the major leagues. But then you get superstars. Like you look at the Washington Nationals. There was a big difference between what the Rays did and what the Nationals did with those 2 picks. The Nationals were able to get 2 generational talents.
Yeah.
Steven Strasburg was the best pitcher to come out of college in a long time. Paul Skeens is they're talking about Paul Skeens as being this generation's Steven Strasburg. But they're 2 very different pitchers, but that's the conversation for another day. We could do that as the draft gets closer. And then you have Bryce Harper, who was the best prospect in the draft in a long time. I would argue better than A-Rod, probably as good as Griffey. That's what you were comparing him to, was Ken Griffey Jr. realistically at the time. So it's not surprising that he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, that he's a stud who could win a World Series with the Phillies. And it was very close this past year, but then they played the old Houston trash cans. Astros. But
you know what? There's a group at Disney that at Epcot that walks around and they just look like they're custodial people, and then they just stop and they put the trash cans down and they start playing it. And I think it's a great retirement program that they have for the Astros. It's really nice that I see them still working.
Oh my God, that's funny. But as for baseball, I mean, it's hard not to start. I mean, I'm actually going to start at the bottom. Yeah. I'm going to start with the Oakland A's, who...
Thank God when you say start at the bottom, you can't start with the Diamondbacks this time. Thank the Lord for that.
Yeah. So I'm starting with the A's, and for a stretch, they actually played pretty good baseball. Like they split a series with the Rays. They swept the Brewers. They took 2 out of 3 from the Pirates, but that was at the beginning of the month.
Yeah.
Since they played the Rays, since they took the first 2 games in the series against the Rays, because they won, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row, which is crazy to think about a team that's got 20 wins having won 7 in a row at one point.
Yeah.
Since that winning streak ended, they have won 1 game out of, I believe, 10. So, yeah, that's safe to say they regressed. They're back to reality now. But I do genuinely feel bad for Oakland A's fans. I do. Did you see the reverse boycott?
Yeah, that they're gonna like pack the stadium.
They did.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was one of the.
Let's pack the stadium. Let's do it. And I'm like,
they're sending a shirt to Cooperstown. Apparently the commissioner loved it. Which is sad, and I do genuinely feel bad for them. I do think the Vegas move is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the city of Oakland doesn't want to help them pay for a new stadium.
Yeah.
Now, the owner's got a lot to do with it. The owner is a cheapskate who won't spend money. I don't even think he may not have money. That might be the problem, but he will not spend money. He basically takes the free money that he gets from the other owners, is as part of the there's like some sort of equality agreement with the owners, and everybody gets paid out the same. So he basically takes that money, and that's his profit.
Yeah.
But they have a minus 224 run differential. That means they have been outscored by their opponents by 224 runs. This early in the season, that's hard to do. Over a full season, yeah, sure. That's hard to do. Going on to another team that was hot, they did just lose their first 2 games in 2 weeks. The Cincinnati Reds had won 12 in a row. Ellie De La Cruz comes up and is awesome. Hits for the cycle. Then they've just lost 2 out of 3 of the Braves. So, granted, the Braves, very good baseball team.
Yeah.
They're going to, it's the reason why they very well could be they're the best team in the National League right now, and much as it kills me to say it, they're the favorites to come out of the National League.
Well, and the thing is, if they keep doing what they're like, if the Mets keep fumbling here down the line and the Braves stay hot, we could see at the midpoint of the season, this could be the thing where, like, let's say the Mets get hot down the stretch toward the end of this season, but the Braves have already given themselves enough wiggle room. It's kind of like when you watch like a first and second half of a college basketball game, and you say to yourself, like, for men's college, I see it with Syracuse all the time. It's like, okay, Syracuse had a great second half and they outscored the team 40-25, but they dug such a hole in the first half that they needed so much more because you're down by 20, but then you outscore them by 15, so you lose by 5. It's that's what I'm kind of thinking with the Mets and the Braves. Are the Mets in danger at the midpoint of the season that if they flounder a little bit here and the Braves stay hot, that if the Mets finally turn it around and surge, do you think that we could look back on this season and say, at the time that we're talking at the end of June, the Braves were doing enough then and they continue to do enough that the Mets could never catch up?
Well, the Mets are not going to catch up. You heard it here first. The Mets are not winning the National League East. It is not going to happen. They're 15 games back in the middle of June, and the Braves are red hot.
Right.
They are not winning the division. They are in danger of missing the playoffs. That's how bad this is. Yeah. And it's been Verlander has not lived up to what he's been. Scherzer hasn't been great yet. Though he started to turn it around.
Yeah.
But other than that, the rotation's been terrible. Senga's been okay, but he's walking half the lineup every game. Peterson was so bad he got sent to AAA. McGill was so bad he got sent to AAA. Carrasco hasn't been good since he came back. Quintana's been hurt all year.
Yeah.
I don't even know who the heck's going to make their next fifth start. Like who their fifth starter is going to be right now. I have no idea. The lineup hasn't hit. Alonso's been good, but Lindor hasn't hit.
Yeah.
Beatty hasn't hit in about a month. Alvarez has cooled off. McNeil's, not doing great. This team, Brandon Nimmo's leading the team with a 283 batting average. He's having a solid year, but other than that, Marte's not hitting. Canna's not hitting. Bam has been good when he's played. Vogelback is not hitting. If they want to make the playoffs, they got to go crazy at the deadline. And it sounds like they might. I've been seeing articles that Steve Cohen is basically going to be calling teams and offering to take on big contracts in order to get players without having to really give up anything. He basically will say he'll take the contract on. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll take the money. I don't give a crap about money. He doesn't.
Right.
I saw one that they're maybe going to try and get, Patrick Corbin from the Nationals in addition to a couple relievers. And they'll take on Patrick Corbin's entire salary, which is, I think, another 3 years on that deal. Yeah. 2 or 3 years on that deal at $25 million, $28 million a year. I saw one that, now, this was a crazy one, but trading for Ohtani with the Angels and taking on Anthony Rendon's contract.
Well, this is the thing. You look at it, Major League Baseball payroll, when you say they don't care about the money, the Mets have the highest payroll in 2023.
By far.
$353.546 million. They're ahead of the Yankees by almost $100 million. 276.999. Then the San Diego Padres, who you think would be at the top with all the balloon contracts that they've gotten over the last couple of years, they're at 248.995. Then the Phillies, then the Dodgers, then the Angels, then the Blue Jays, and Atlanta is at 203, second best team in baseball.
Well,
Texas,
freaking Atlanta keeps signing their studs to team-friendly contracts and making off like gangsters. Austin Riley just signed like a 9-year, $200 million contract. That dude should be getting close to $300 million in a couple of years.
So you got
That's
that.
ridiculous. Acuna's on a cheap deal. Albies is on a cheap deal. Strider's on a cheap deal. Kyle Wright's on a cheap deal. Like,
Right.
why can't other teams do this?
Well, because
why can't the Mets do this?
Some teams understand winning championships, whether you like him or not. Tom Brady and what he did with the Patriots. The Rangers are in the top 10 for payrolls, but they're under $200 million at 195.869, and Houston rounds out the top 10 with a payroll this year of $192.667 million. At the bottom, it won't surprise you.
How much? I want to know how much. I'm going to take a guess. I know it's Oakland.
Okay, how about this?
I'm going to try and guess how much.
You write a number, put it on the screen. You write a
Okay.
number and
and
show the world. And then I'll do it. I'll tell you. I would have wrote it if I didn't see it. Put a number. The lowest payroll in 2023 are the Oakland Athletics. 30 out of 30. I want you to put a number
Ready?
up. Yep. Put the number up. Show it to me. $33 million. They are $56.895 million.
What?
Yeah, they are. The Baltimore.
Wait. When did they put up another $20 million? Because it was 30-something million before the season started.
It says 56 right here. Baltimore is at 60.7.
Oh my God.
Baltimore is the second lowest payroll in baseball in 2023 with 60.772. Not surprising. Your best team in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays, third lowest payroll in the country, best team in baseball, is getting these players for $73.184 million. Pittsburgh, $73.277. Cincinnati, $83.610. Cleveland is 25th in the league out of 30 with 89.424. Miami, as good as they've been, $91.7 million. And then Kansas.
Can I say something real quick about the Marlins?
Go ahead. Arizona. Well, let me say this too. Arizona, because this has been the year of my number and my grandfather's number showing up with my teams, which I'm hoping is good signs for big things. The Arizona Diamondbacks have the 21st payroll in the country, which is toward the lowest in baseball. It's in the bottom half here, and 21's my lucky number. Arizona's 21st in payroll out of 30 franchises. They're number one in their division right now, and they're paying their players a total 2023 of $116.471. Not too shabby. Go ahead. What were you going to say about the Marlins?
So the Miami Marlins.
Yes. Who are paying less than the Diamondbacks, which is insane.
Yeah. First of all, I think the Marlins are the most underrated team in baseball, without a douut.
Well, Arraez is,
and the funny part is
still $399, $400 today, right around there.
Yeah, $399
Yeah.
is his batting average as of right now. Luis Arraez is having a historic season. We haven't had anybody sniff 400 since Tony Gwynn in the strike shortened season in 1994, and I think Tony Gwynn might have done it, to be honest, because if at the time if there was anybody that can do that, it's Tony Gwynn.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. He was one of the greatest hitters that has ever lived, and died way too young. But he was incredible. And what Luis Arraez is doing right now, hitting $399 halfway through the season, is unbelievable. The funny thing is, I was, and I'll get into this later when we have our little show and tell segment. He's doing things that only Ted Williams can do right now. The only problem is Ted Williams hit a lot more home runs than Luis Arraez will in his entire career. He's got 3 all year. But on the pitching side, your reigning National League Cy Young Award winner, Sandy Alcantara, his ERA is over 5. He has not been good this year. His strikeouts are down. His walks are up. He's allowing a lot more hard contact this year. He's got a 5 ERA. Jesus Luzardo has been very good for them. Just a little under 4 ERA, a little over 10 strikeouts per 9. He's been pretty good. Braxton Garrett's been outstanding for them as well. He's had a really good year. But the guy I want to talk about is the guy that they have some questions to answer about his workload is Yuri Perez. At 20 years old, he started the game on Sunday? Yeah, on Sunday against the Pirates. Third straight quality start. Third straight 6-inning, 0-run outing. 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. 2 starts in a row, he had 9 strikeouts. For the season, 47 innings pitched that's being called up in 9 starts. 10.3 Ks per 9, 54 strikeouts in 47 innings. .98 whip, 1.34 ERA. 20 years old. Yeah. Kid's not even old enough to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
This dude, he's not going to be able to pitch a full season for them, which is sad because I've got him on one of my dynasty baseball teams, and I'm loving life right now with him.
Yeah.
Because now I've got him, I've got Spencer Strider, I've got Garrett Cole, I've got lots of other guys, my pitching staff's loaded in that league, by the way. But he has been so dominant over his last 4 or 5 starts and even his entire big league career so far. But he's got an innings limit right now. The Marlins got to manage his workload. He's at, I believe, 80 or so innings pitched for the year between the big leagues and the minor leagues. I don't see them wanting to get him to more than like 130. If they get into like 130 innings, which is essentially 50 more innings, which you figure is another 9 starts or so, they're thinking about doing like a phantom IL stint and letting him rest through the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And then bringing him back. And then maybe what they'll do at the end of the season is skip a start or 2, try to keep him fresh, and see if they can get him to the playoffs. Because I do think that Marlins team is going to make the playoffs. I really do. With Jorge Soler in the middle of that lineup with over 20 home runs, Jazz Chisholm's been good, even though he's hurt right now. Garrett Cooper's hit well for them. Brian De La Cruz has probably been their best player this year. 280 with 8 home runs and driven in 41 runs. Not striking out as much as he usually does. But I am really interested to see what this Marlins team does. As for, unlike most teams in the National League East, I do not hate the Marlins one bit. I've got absolutely no animosity towards the Marlins.
I like the Marlins
because they've always been terrible my whole life.
Well, and I like the Marlins because my experience with their farm team, the Florida Manatees, is that I got my first foul ball and I got a signed baseball of like 13 of them on there. So my experience with the Marlins has been good. Wore the hats and a lot of connection to my Florida family with the Marlins when they were called the Florida Marlins. But I do want to correct myself on something because I think it's important when you're wrong to say you're wrong and to learn from it. I know that this world has not done that on a grand scale, but if we did, we might get somewhere. I've been saying Arraez, it's Luis Arraez. My apologies to Luis on that.
Yeah, I said it wrong for years too, and
being Hispanic,
I guess they finally said Arraez, yeah.
Right. And being Hispanic, when you see Arraez, Arraez is what it seems to be. And I've never seen anything spelled like that was pronounced differently, but to a Luis Arraez, since I know people say my name wrong, I want to say my apologies because I've talked about him a lot on the show and I want to do it the right way. But batting .399 has been at .400, I think 3 times this season. And as I was talking about yesterday, Luis Arraez he's only the fourth player in Major League Baseball history to have at least 3 games in 1 month of the same season with 5 hits. And we're talking about days where he's gone 5 for 5 at times, but where he's had 5 hits in 3 games in the same month in the same season, and the other 3 guys that have ever done it historically are all in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And I believe Tony Gwynn was the last one that did it.
Oh yeah,
I think it was 19,
that's not surprising.
And it was, I think it was like 40 years ago. I think he did it in 1981. I'm gonna fact check myself right now, but I think it was.
Yeah. So Luis Ariz is, and the crazy thing is, at the time they made that trade, I thought the Marlins were crazy. They traded Pablo Lopez and other prospects to get a dude that's just gonna hit.
Right. And Pablo,
he doesn't hit for any power. Like,
Pablo's
come on,
ERA
and he's not a good defender.
4.4. When we're looking at Luis Ariz batting 400, the irony is the 4 on the other side for Pablo not good. His ERA at the same time was 4.40.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't been bad for them. He had a couple of starts where he gave up a lot of runs, but other than that, he's been decent. But with
it was 84. So I can say, so the Hall of Fame, so I was right. There's three other guys, and the Hall of Famers to also have, he's only the 4th player with 3 5-hit games in a single month, as I stated, in the same season. George Sisler did it in August of 1921. Ty Cobb did it in July of 1922. I said 81 for Tony Gwynn. It was 84. June of 1984, which means that it was almost 40 years ago since the last time a player had 3 5-hit games in the same month in the same season. So Luis Ariz just did something that hasn't been done in 39 years in base.
I'm surprised Ted Williams never did that.
Yeah,
I really am.
But
that's very surprising.
Yeah, Tony Gwynn. So yeah, looking at this, I mean, it's great. And then it said Rise's 400 batting average is tied for the 9th highest through 73 games at the time since 1941, when Ted Williams hit 406. So Ted Williams was the last player in baseball to hit 400 in a full season, and that was in 1941. So if Luis Ariz does it this season to hit 400 for a season in baseball, it'll be the first time in... That's insane. And it'll be the first time in almost
82 years.
Yeah, 80. Look at that. So in 1941, then yeah, it'll be the first time in 82 years in Major League Baseball.
Pretty darn
82
impressive.
years between Ted Williams and maybe Luis Ariz. I hope so. So
the thing is, for the longest time, I don't think that was a record that I didn't think would ever be broken. And I still don't think it'll be broken. I don't think if Luis Ariz hits 400, I don't think he's going to hit 407.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll break Ted Williams' record. Could he hit 400? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because all the dude does is hit.
Why do you think it's so hard, though? Do you think it's because pitching has just evolved? I mean, we've had great pitchers in history. I mean,
pitching has evolved. Baseball's become more of that 3 true outcomes game. Guys aren't trying to hit for average. Guys are trying to hit for power.
Yeah.
In the last 30 years, since Tony Gwynn retired, we really haven't had anybody that could even rival a 400 batting average.
Right.
And Luis Ariz basically is doing that right now, and literally just doing everything he can to get hits.
Well,
he doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care about power. He doesn't strike out.
Yeah.
He also doesn't really walk that much, but he does not hit home runs, but he gets hits. Lots of singles.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen in the game these days. I mean, look at somebody like Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo is the definition of 3 true outcomes. He literally is either a home run, a strikeout, or a walk. That's it. Dude hits under 200 or just over 200 most of the time. 250 is a decent batting average these days.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
you hit 300, you're a god.
Like us growing up, 300 was like where you had to get to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
like back in the day, here in Carlos Beltran, David Wright, Jose Reyes hitting over 300.
Yeah.
With 15, 18, 20 home runs.
Number.
Absolutely.
I mean,
now it's like 270.
So based on what you said with 250 being pretty good batting average, when Ariz came from the Minnesota Twins of the AL Central to come over to the National League East for the Marlins. When they brought him in, he was leading the American League, the entire American League, East, Central, and West, with a batting average of .316 last year. So
yeah, he won the batting title last year too.
So we talk about 250 being good now, 300 when you and I were growing up. He was hitting .316 last year to lead the entire American League, and now he's
How
hitting
does that
400.
win a batting title though? That's crazy to think about.
What'd you say?
Like, how does 316 win a batting title?
Well,
that's what's crazy
but
about
that's
it.
because of what we're used to. But look at him. I mean, we're talking about him this year being around 400, but last year he led half of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, he led he led his entire American League, but then when you look at the other teams and their overall batting average, then arguably he leads more than half of baseball.
I think he was second because Jeff McNeil won the National League batting title and the Major League batting title too. I think he was 322 or something like that last year.
But if 250 is the goal now, and he's hitting 316 last year, and now he's hitting 400, he's only getting better. And when you look at the grand scheme of things, like I said, Pablo Lopez, you know, as of recent history in 15 starts, 4.40 ERA. And then you're looking at, you know, the Miami Marlins and where they are and what they have going on. I mean, you look at the standings, the Boston Red Sox are at the bottom of the American League East. And you look at the Miami Marlins are second in the National League to the Atlanta Braves.
Mm-hmm.
And Luis Arraez has only gotten better. He has literally only risen. So it's fair that he's Arraez. So, and that time for him has definitely been right now, which has been beautiful. We're going to take a quick step aside here on the broadcast. When we come back, Brendan's going to open something on the air. I'm going to show a few things that I forgot I had. I have a little secret. I have a bunch of secret stashes in the studio. So I'm not going to show everything today, but I'm going to show 4 things today of my secret stash. And we'll be back right after this fast break on DT and Murphy inside a Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Happy to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where sports meets life. We are excited to always bring you a DT and Murphy to start off your week inside a Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. It's my excuse to hang out with Brendan Murphy every single week, and so we're doing that here on the broadcast, and always look forward to bringing that here for you to start off your week. Like I said, here on our many channels, you can go to wakeupcalldt.com and make it easy for yourself. If you go to our homepage of our website, wakeupcalldt.com, you will see on the homepage that it'll say watch and listen live. You can click on the YouTube logo, click on the Facebook logo, or click on the bar that is the Podbean feed. If you click on any one of those, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, they will play live from the website, wakeupcalldt.com. Or you can go directly to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on Podbean at wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. So however you connect with us, thank you so much. Inside of DT and Murphy, that's on a show takeover today, as Murph will join me all the way through to the end. He has something. He sent me a message, and he had a picture of something that he got, and he said, want me to open it live. It's a pretty cool card. I have no idea what it is. So this is the cool thing.
I didn't tell you what it is, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, and this is the cool thing about it is that Murph and I don't, when we say like we're going to show and tell, we don't tell each other what we have. So like he has no idea what these are. I have no idea what that package is. So
and you also have no idea what these are either.
I don't. So
now here's the question: do you want me to start with these, or do you want me to start with the box?
Start with those because we gotta save the big surprise for last.
Okay, because this one's pretty cool. Now, one of the cards that I have in here is probably cooler than what's in the box, but
okay.
No, that's okay though. So I'm gonna put the big one at the bottom. So I'm gonna start off with one of the first purchases I made. Actually, I'm gonna put the two together. So these two I bought together yesterday.
Okay.
So I went to a showdown in the Lehigh Valley yesterday. I'm going to start with the new one.
Okay.
This is a guy everybody knows, Mike Trout.
Yeah.
This is 2011 Bowman Platinum. 2010 actually. Oh wow, I didn't realize it was 2010. But this is a rookie.
Yeah.
This is worth a little bit of money, so I'm gonna put this out in my case at the show I'm doing here in a couple of weeks. So looking forward to that. The card I got with it is really cool. Remember how we were talking a little bit about Ted Williams earlier, right?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
1958 Ted Williams.
Nice.
In pretty solid condition, too. I'll hold it up to the camera.
Yeah.
It's, obviously old cards age, right? It's very hard to find an old card in like a PSA 10. Like the Mickey Mantle 1952, there's only 3 of them in the world.
Yeah.
How? I don't know. But it's quite impressive. Next one, this one has some sentimental value to me because I found it in not this exact card, but I found one of these in a dollar bin at a flea market when I was a kid. Told my mom to get it, and I gave her $1 for it later because I didn't have any money with me. And I later sold it for $100. And I bought this for less than what I sold the other one for. So this is a 1967 Hank Aaron in a PSA 4.
Yeah.
So not in great condition, but it's decent.
It's funny that you say that because I have something that connects back to Mr. Aaron today.
Do you? Okay. Looking forward to that one.
Yes, I do.
This is another one, another oldie. I bought some vintage stuff recently. So this is Bob Gibson, 1964. It's a PSA 6, but it's a PSA 6 MC, which basically stands for miscut.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell that the centering, so there's a lot of white here. There's no white here.
Yeah.
Basically just means the centering is very, very, very off.
Yeah, because they used to take them over right on cardboard, and they would just cut the stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the card itself is actually in decent shape. I mean, you can see the back. The back's pretty off center too. So that one's not great. Couple more here. We got an Adley Rutschman rookie auto from Topps. This is one I got yesterday. This is a really cool looking card. He's had a great year.
Yeah.
So he's probably going to be. He got a very good chance to be in the American League Rookie of the Year this year. So I feel like this is something that's going to fly off the shelf for me. So everything I bought yesterday was investments. So the vintage stuff I got a couple days earlier, but those were investments. this is one that is not an investment. This is because he was my favorite player.
Yeah.
Anybody that knows me knows I love this guy. Michael Joseph Piazza.
Nice.
On
my favorite
chrome black from last year.
My arguable favorite pitcher of all time.
Pitcher?
Or catcher, that's what I meant.
I was going to say.
I know, yeah, in my head I'm like, my favorite catcher, I don't know what, it's Monday. My arguable favorite catcher of all time. And I remember liking Mike Piazza and people going, are you a Mets fan? I'm like, no. They're like, why do you like Mike Piazza? I'm like, I don't know, I just do. And I was in elementary school. I just really liked Mike Piazza. So
it's a cool story. I could go on and talk about Mike Piazza for hours, but it's just a really cool story about his upbringing.
If I could meet any catcher in the world, the first one I would think of is Mike Piazza. That I would want to meet. Like, personally, I would want to meet.
Yeah, I would too.
That's just me.
Well, now I would have said Vin Scully if you asked me that while he was still around.
Well, Vin.
I was really sad when he died.
Well,
I would have loved to have dinner with him.
Bless him in heaven. Vin Scully and his loved ones on earth and in heaven, in Jesus' name. Vin Scully, he did a lot of work with the American Athletic Conference that I've been close with since its institution. So, if they had a speaker, they'd be like, oh, Vin Scully's coming over to speak. And so I know that connection between him and the commissioner, Mike Oresco, was important too. And so it's a name that, that I heard over the years. And obviously just, I know he's at rest. I know he's at peace and happy up there. But, to you, like you said, when you're sad, it reminds me of when Robin Williams passed away. I mean, it affected me more than when my uncle passed away because I was not close to my uncle. And Robin Williams and I look at my comedy, the evolution of my personality, the things that I'm not afraid to do. Like, I watched Robin Williams pretty much my whole life. I think the first live action thing that I was ever allowed to watch on TV was Mork and Mindy. And I have Mork and Mindy. I bought it for $5, $10. I have the series. And I grew up on Mrs. Doubtfire. Jumanji scared me as a kid, and it still kind of freaks me out as an adult because it's not like the new ones. It's not as funny. And it kind of ends like a Goosebumps episode where you're like, wait, there's bad things that are still happening. So, but yeah, I mean, I grew up on all of that with Robin Williams. I grew up on his comedy, his messages, his heart, and he just so happened to play a character named Daniel in a couple of his movies, and one of them being Mrs. Doubtfire. So, yeah, I mean, he just hit home to me in a different way, and when he passed away, I had to legitimately park my car in a parking lot and sit. So, these people have a huge effect on us. And Vin Scully, I'm happy that you said that he had an effect on you because that's a name that whenever I heard it, it was always a positive. So. Oh yeah,
I've never in my life heard anybody speak anything negative about Vin Scully. He is literally the GOAT of sports announcers, and if anybody tries to tell you different, they're wrong. It's like saying that anybody other than Wayne Gretzky is the best hockey player ever. It's just not true.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky is the great one for a reason.
Yeah.
Vin Scully is the GOAT for a reason. He did it for 67 years with the same organization.
Yeah.
That took him from Flatbush in Brooklyn all the way to Los Angeles, 3,000 miles away. So that tells you how much the O'Malleys thought of him when they moved to LA, because he was only there 7 years at the time. And then they moved to LA, and Walter O'Malley wanted to take their announcers. But Vince, it's another thing. I could sit here and talk about Vince Scully all day because the storyteller that he was, how articulate he was when he described the game.
Yeah.
And then you have some of the calls that he made. Like the one that always sticks out to me is when he called Hank Aaron's 715th home run. And, if that would have happened today, people would have screamed racist, or whatever. But what he said in that moment. So first of all, he hits the home run, and he did not talk for about a good minute and a half. Hank Aaron rounds the bases, gets to his teammates.
Yeah.
And I can literally, forgive me if I'm incorrect in the quote here, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. He talks about, well, I'm not going to exactly quote him, but he talks about how it's a great moment for Hank Aaron, for the state of Georgia, for Atlanta, and for the world. And basically how he ends it is a black man has broken the record of an all-time baseball idol in the Deep South.
Yeah.
And you remember in the 1970s, at that time, the civil rights movement was still, it was still happening, right? So we all knew that there was a lot of racism happening in the South.
Yeah.
And everyone was on their feet clapping for a black man. And, that's just what he thought of in the moment. And I thought that was a really powerful statement, the way he said it, because of everything going on at the time, how powerful that was. And he was basically saying how the racism that's happening down there was put aside for this record. And it was really incredible to see that happen. So for me, that's everyone will talk about the Kirk Gibson home run and how that was his greatest call. I think Hank Aaron's home run was his greatest call ever, personally.
Well, and if you got an argument of, this is his greatest call, or that's his greatest call, or that,
anybody could be right.
Well, but
there's so many of them.
But that's the thing, is how great somebody was when you're arguing over what his best call was. You're not arguing to see if he had a really good call. You're arguing of a bunch of great calls, which one was the greatest. And, that's a beautiful thing to have. And, growing up in the world of broadcasting and watching Stuart Scott and watching Rich Eisen, my favorite sports center, and getting to hear people over time and getting to hear voices over time. And obviously growing up with John Madden, seeing John Madden all the time on the football side of things, because I watch a lot of football. And Jim Nance, of course, obviously hearing
Al Michaels,
Bob Costas, Al Michaels,
Jack and Joe Buck.
When you see that and you're around it and you get to start your career as a play-by-play and for all facets of the game, when I was doing college basketball, men's and women's college basketball at Marywood, I was the color and the play-by-play. Because it was funny. They're like, well, even when Joe Forgione was with me, they said, well, you're the play-by-play guy, right? You're the more serious guy, and he's the color. And I was like,